Hello and welcome to Voice Notes from a Friend Live. I'm here with one of my dearest, Minaa B. If you're not familiar with Voice Notes from a Friend, I'm Vanessa Cornell. It is a weekly 5-minute voice note about whatever is on my mind. Whether it's motherhood or midlife or friendship or spirituality or something a little more mundane, I share my thoughts. I think of it as the anti-AI. It's unscripted. It's straight from the heart. It's real, it's human, and it's only 5 minutes once a week. So I've started this incredible series, Voice Notes Live, where I talk to some of my smartest, dearest friends about topics from past voice notes. Today, I am speaking with Minaa B, who is an awesome human, as well as having so many other things that recommend her. She's an author. She's a podcast host. She's a therapist. She does speaking engagements and workshops that are super, super powerful, as well as having 2 beautiful Substack newsletters, Mindful with Minaa, and I'm So Mature, which I'm really loving your newest project about kind of pop culture and your it's interesting. It's pop culture, but it's kind of your deep thoughts on pop culture almost.
Right.
Right? So,
Yeah.
if you're not familiar with Minaa's work, follow at all of those places. And today we're talking about voice note number 10, which is all about a realization that I had that the trajectory I was on, which was a hardcore exercise trajectory, was not for me anymore. And the reason, Mina, I asked you to come on is because immediately when I put that voice note out, you were like, yes, I've had that experience. Also, I've had that complete 180 mindset shift as well. So maybe just tell us about that, because I'd rather hear your story than mine, because mine's already in the voice note.
Yeah, I remember that particular newsletter and, we were talking about, like, exercise, right, in that newsletter, and I remember at the time I was going to a gym called Orange Theory. For those of you who are not familiar with it, it is a very high intensity workout class, and because it is a class, I forget that sometimes you don't have to necessarily follow the structure to a detail to the T, and I didn't realize throughout my life, and this is something I'm still shaping and relearning the different ways that I feel like I have to abide by certain rules
Yeah.
because this is the norm that I'm existing in. So when I was in Orange Theory, I felt the need to kind of keep up with my classmates, especially because you have this hour workout. It's really, really intense. And then I ended up with a knee injury as a result of that, right? So it helped me recognize the areas in my life where I need to slow down, but then it also helps me recognize when you can bend the rules
Yeah.
and when you have to redefine if the rules are working for you or if it's time to invent new ones.
Yeah, that rule follower thing is, I mean, I've got it too. It is very strong in me.
Mm.
And I see it in my kids too, mostly my girls. But that thing where you think to yourself, well, the instructor is telling me I need to do it and I need to do 10 reps and I can't stop. So I can't stop. But like, newsflash, you can stop. You have the choice to stop. And not only can you stop, but nothing terrible is going to happen if you do.
Mhm.
No one's going to hate you.
Thank-
No one, but it feels a little bit like something terrible is going to happen. I think for me, that conditioning is so strong that
Mhm.
the breaking of the rule feels very activating. It feels
Yeah.
like a courageous act. And I actually had a story with my daughter where, there's that invisible line behind the counter at the Gap, for example,
Right. Right.
where you're in the part of the store that's for the customers, and then there's that part of the store that's for the salespeople, and you can't possibly cross that line because you're not supposed to be there. And so we play this game where we put our toe over it on purpose to feel the discomfort of it. But how arbitrary. Who am I hurting by going behind the counter where I don't belong? But it's very strong in me, and I actually notice it a lot in workout classes.
Mhm. Yeah. Same. And that was my first time experiencing something like that too.
Mhm.
Right. And I think it kind of shifted a lot for me, I guess, because I ended up hurting my knee, that it was that moment where I said, why am I forcing myself to do it this way? And what was interesting too is the instructor already tells you to go at the pace that works
Yeah.
for you. But I think there's also this social conditioning that when you are in certain environments, because I didn't necessarily feel pressure from other people where I have to keep up with them. But I think because of the environment that I was in, there's this social conditioning that when you're in a space like this, you're supposed to perform a certain way, regardless of how other people are showing up in the room. And I think that's social conditioning, like, as you even said, right? If you're a customer, be a customer,
Mhm.
right? So when you're in this particular social environment, there is this conditioning regarding how you're supposed to show up when you are in this environment. And I think that was a part of the rule breaking too that I had to, I guess, unlearn and reclassify. Well, what new rules work for me when I am in this environment? Because now I hurt myself
Yeah.
as a result of trying to keep up with whatever I think the social norms are when existing in this space. And I think a lot of that also in my personal life for me kind of goes back to this discomfort of being a rule breaker. I think specifically, like, even in my family, right? Like being a disruptor of norms,
Mm.
being somebody who decided, you know what, I want to be more assertive. I want to have better boundaries. I want to classify new rules in this family system. And I think sometimes when you get pushback in this particular social environment, it can trickle out into the other environments that you exist in where you think you're going to be punished, you think you're going to be ridiculed, you think, as you said, something terrible is going to happen. And I think I've had to teach myself throughout the years of me just doing this healing work, is recognizing that one, it's not always the worst case scenario. What is the
Yeah.
best case scenario? But also, what does it look like to give myself permission to bend the rules, but then also give other people permission to react and see if they can hold space for these new rules that I want to create for myself.
Yeah, yeah. I wanna pick up on something you said early, which is the supposed to,
Mhm.
because the supposed to is sort of a social contract, you know? I am the customer, this is where I belong. You are the salesperson, this is where you belong. Those social contracts exist for a reason, so we know how to be in community, in relationship with other people. But I think what happens is that we become very attuned
Mhm.
to those relational dynamics at the expense of ourselves. So we know really well how to keep the peace. We know really well how to do what we're supposed to do to make everyone. And then I love the analogies of physical and then social and emotional, because and then your body says, yes, but you're hurting me.
Yeah.
Your body is so clear sometimes. You maintain the social contract of we're doing this as a group. Wait, what if a workout class, everyone was doing their own thing and no one was following the instructor, right? So it's like, it's not that the social contract is inherently always wrong and we should break every rule. Rules are helpful, but I think that for so many of us along the spectrum of rule following and rule breaking, we're so far on the end of rule following that we are subverting or denying or repressing what it's doing to us.
Yeah.
And so I've seen so many times examples where you have pushed to be the rule breaker or the cycle breaker or the person in the family who speaks up and you get reactions,
Mm.
but it's because it needs to happen for you.
Yeah.
And you do it so beautifully and powerfully. But to me, the dynamic of the rule breaker for someone who's such a follower, it can be done with such care and such love.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
without, and I think that for the rule followers amongst us, feeling very activated by rule breaking. If this was if this is a rule breaker and this is a rule follower, we're like here. We're generally not all the way over here. It would be way too uncomfortable to be all the way over here. But but the dynamic of it's uncomfortable for me, so it's probably the right thing.
Yeah, it's when we start to lean into the discomfort and say, if this is what I'm feeling, then I should not. Going back to the supposed to, right? I must not be, it must not be the right thing to do because it
Mhm.
makes me feel uncomfortable. It feels a little scary. It's inducing some form of anxiety. And then that's when we start to allow our emotions to dictate our behavior instead of also owning and recognizing that I also can manage this emotion. I can tend to this emotion. I can speak to this emotion, and maybe I just need to process this emotion, but I don't need to allow this emotion to dictate the next steps that I make. But this emotion is there. So let
Mhm.
me tend to it. Let me talk to it. Let me figure out how to minimize it versus allowing it to lead. Because I find that that's a very common thing when we are the disruptors. When we
Yeah.
say, these rules no longer work for me, what are the new rules that I need to implement? I also think sometimes too, we feel like because this is so difficult for us and it's uncomfortable for us, when the people around us start to show their discomfort, we assume this must mean we're doing something wrong and we're not supposed to be doing this thing because even if we are in a place of now getting to become more confident in our rule breaking, we might say that, oh, it made this person upset. I guess I shouldn't have done this thing.
Yeah.
I didn't follow the class structure. I guess I was, a bad participant in class when the reality is doing this move hurts my knee.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm not really like inconveniencing anyone, but by following the rules, I'm only inconveniencing myself. And I think a big part of this is one, recognizing that you can care for the emotions of the people, you can have empathy and compassion for the emotions of other people, but we do have to manage this feeling of being responsible for fixing the emotions of other people. I think that's where people get those two things wrong and they tend to have a really hard time separating it where it's like I can care for how you feel. I can even understand how you feel because there are times too in my life where I realize I'm enforcing new rules in a situation or a family dynamic where they're accustomed to me responding or being one particular way. And I woke up one day and I said, I don't want to be that person anymore. And I understand it, but they may not get it because they're
Yeah.
like, Mina, you never used to have these boundaries. Where is this coming from? And I had to start being more mindful that this is probably weird for you too.
Yeah.
And I can hold compassion for that. That doesn't mean I'm going to change my new rules. It doesn't mean I'm going to change my boundaries. It doesn't mean I'm going to neglect what I need. But this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I understand the resistance. I understand the pushback. You're just not used to me having these rules. You're not used to me having this particular structure or these boundaries, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm responsible for now tending to every emotion that you have about my new role, nor does it mean that I'm responsible for inconveniencing myself so that I can make things convenient for you. And I think those are the two things that I feel has helped me on my journey in realizing that it's actually okay to sometimes put yourself in the shoes of other people and
Mhm.
realize, oh, I am acting different.
Right.
And they're responding to my difference in whatever way they can, whatever way they know how from their level of maturity.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that I have to stop being me
Right.
because it makes them uncomfortable.
Right. Right. I mean, I just wanna call out that that is ninja level. It is, right? I mean, you're talking about setting boundaries you've never set before with the people that you've been with your whole life, your family.
Mhm.
So for a lot of this stuff, we can practice it out in the world, and then we get to our family system and we go, it's the hardest. It's absolutely the hardest. And something that I've noticed is I am much better at being curious about my supposed to reaction in the Gap store with my foot over that line than I am in intense activated family system situations. So I find it really interesting and fascinating to observe oh, my knee hurts in the workout class, but I still feel like I need to keep going, or it's uncomfortable for me to be there. And so I think that this, the ninja level situation or the everyday situation are actually, I think, very connected, because for a lot of us, we didn't even know we didn't like it
Yeah.
for a long time because we haven't practiced the muscle of this doesn't feel good. We just pushed through. So many of us, we just endured, ignored, pushed down, and numbed. And so for me, a lot of the changes in my life and the realizations, oh, this doesn't work for me anymore, have come from much smaller realizations of, how interesting. I feel the need to push through in this workout class, or I feel the need to participate or not participate in this conversation because of what's expected of me. And so many of those little realizations have built up to, I think, a voice inside
Mhm.
becoming just a little bit louder over time so that it could I think it's been whispering for so long because it's been told to quiet down for so long. So I wonder if you can talk about that and your experience of the, oh, to just tough it out. Whatever that little voice is inside. Shh. You're inconvenient. You're telling me something that is not aligned with what I think I'm supposed to do or supposed to be or supposed to feel or supposed to act. Because to me that was the beginning for me. And even physically, I asked myself, am I just older and my body hurts more? Or does my body hurt more because I'm finally hearing and listening to my body and actually feeling what it's been telling me for so long, which is, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts. Please stop.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that speaks to self-trust,
Mhm.
where thinking about the ways that sometimes we have been conditioned to neglect our own needs because maybe depending on the environment that we grew up in or just how we were taught to perceive our sense of self, we didn't trust ourselves and our ability to be connected with ourselves deep enough to know this hurts. This doesn't feel good to me. I don't like how this person responds to me. I don't like how I feel in this relationship. Am I supposed to just push through because that's what everyone else is telling me? Is it because people are telling me that, oh my gosh, you're so dramatic, or you're a very highly sensitive person, or you're lazy and that's why you don't want to push yourself through the
Mhm.
workout class? Like there's these little voices that sometimes we hear whispering to us, as you said, those small whispers that sometimes keeps us in this space of feeling like we're supposed to or we should just endure and continue to put ourselves in these predicaments that we know just don't feel right. And I think in my own experience, and just when I'm even working with my own clients in therapy, it's this work of what does it look like to trust that you actually know what you need? What does it look like to trust that you understand the difference between intensity and pain, right? I'm pushing myself and I feel sore right now versus, ouch, if I do that again, I might need to go to a doctor,
Yeah.
right? And regardless of what I'm hearing in the room, I can be in tune with myself enough to know that this just doesn't feel good. And I can trust myself by acting on it. I also think it's important too to remember that, one of the things I've learned in life is how there are so many paths to where we're trying to go. But sometimes we say to ourselves, the best way to strengthen my legs, I can only do lunges. That's the only thing that I can do.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like there are so many exercises for a reason. There are so many different ways we heal. There are so many therapeutic modalities for a reason. And I think one of the ways that I've learned to develop my own self trust, but helping people understand trust, is recognizing that there is also a multitude of paths that's leading us to where we're trying to go. But a lot of us have been conditioned to also believe that there is only one way to do something, hence why we still get stuck in the supposed tos or the shoulds,
Yeah.
because we say, I have to go to Orange Theory. There's no other gym that's going to help me lose weight or get my body to where I want to be. It's going to be Orange Theory. And if I don't keep going the Orange Theory, I'm going to fall behind. And we have all of these reasons when there are a multitude of gyms out there and class structures and different things you can be doing.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that that is one of the things that I think can be very helpful in being more in tune with your needs by one, recognizing I actually know how this feels. I can trust myself to know that I do understand pain because
Yeah.
I'm dealing with it right now, mentally or even physically, right? I do recognize that this is just not working for me because I trust that I recognize my capacity. I also trust that I know my level of tolerance. And right now, my tolerance for this thing has shrunk. Maybe at one time I had a huge tolerance for it, but at this point in life, I'm realizing that that tolerance window has shrunk and shrunk and shrunk over time, and this just doesn't feel good. And there are times where you can say, if I want to reroute and circle back to this thing in the future, I can also do that. But
Yeah.
right now, maybe I just want to stop, or maybe I want to pivot, or I want to go in a different direction. And I want to trust that I know that making this different choice is also going to bring me to where I'm trying to go or help me achieve this particular goal.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to ask you about the difference between this doesn't feel good, but I should do it.
Hmm.
Discomfort, sitting with emotions, right? This doesn't feel good, but I should do it. This doesn't feel good, and it's a no. I talk to my kids a lot about this, and I know from let's look, since we're on the exercise theme, I remember my coach saying, "Are you injured or just hurt?"
Mm.
You know? Does it hurt and you should push through, or does it hurt and you should stop? Because not everything that is worthwhile feels pleasant all the time. We should not be saying the second something hurts, it's a no, because there are things worth pursuing and persisting through. And then, as you said, there are seasons where this is not my season to persist on this. This is what I need to do is take care of my energy, take care of my body. I haven't exercised in 5 years. I realize now why. It's got a whole long COVID thing associated with it, but my body knew it was in energy conservation protection mode, and my body knew that this was not right for me. But taking the analogy more to the sort of more emotional pain, when do we know, no, no, this is a no, or this is hard, but I need to stay with it? I need to not say, no, I'm not going to feel that. I'm going to do everything I can to avoid it, to push it away. How can we tell the difference between those two?
Yeah. I think when we know something is a firm no, I say trust your instinct in
Mhm.
recognizing that if I keep saying yes to this thing, I recognize there is going to be an actual injury, whether it be physical or even emotional.
Yeah.
So I'm saying no to this because I've already recognized the consequences and I've already recognized what I feel in this moment I can endure. I cannot endure any more of this, and I'm going to trust that I don't want it right now.
Yeah.
So it's a hard stop. That is what my boundary is because I recognize what that consequence is going to be.
Mhm.
But I think there are times where we can say to ourselves, this doesn't feel good, but I do feel like I have the tolerance for more
Yeah.
of it. It's just that maybe I don't feel like having to deal with it. Right. So going to these workout classes, as we're talking about, right? Can I do 5 more jumping jacks? Yes, I probably can. But do I actually in the moment want to? Maybe I don't. But I don't
Mhm.
think there's going to be a detrimental consequence
Yeah.
if I decide to keep going.
Mhm.
The consequence might just be that maybe I won't achieve my goals if I say, for example, I want to start working out, but I just never go to a gym. The consequence is you're going to remain in whatever situation that you're in. So, whatever goals you're trying to achieve, you're just not going to achieve them. And that in itself can be a consequence. if in that moment you feel like, there's a goal that you want and you're not willing to work toward that goal. So it's like, what is my motivation to change right now? And if your
Yeah.
motivation is on a scale of 1 to 10, it's below a 5, you may not really be motivated to change the thing. It might feel good. The idea might feel good, but the action doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
But I think when we know there's a hard stop to something, we've been able to use discernment and use enough wisdom to know that in this moment, there's going to be a detrimental consequence that I don't want to face, whether it be physical or even mental and emotional. And therefore, it's not worthwhile continuing to pursue this thing. And even as I said, too, sometimes a hard stop is more of a pivot
Yeah.
because maybe I don't want to continue this way, but there's a different method and a different approach I'd rather take that I think works well for me and works well for where I'm currently at in my life.
Yeah, it's almost like the yes, I'm pushing through, and the no, I'm not pushing through, both have to honor you at the end of the day. The I don't feel like going to the gym, or I don't feel like facing this hard truth, but I know through the discernment and the wisdom that ultimately this serves me. This serves me in the long term. Might not feel great in the short term. This serves me in the long term. Or I have to make the hard decision to shift this relationship or end this relationship. Honors me in the long term. And I think that part, that honoring of yourself, people always say, what would your best friend say? What would somebody who loves you say? To be able to create that relationship with self, that self trust to say, I'm making this choice to honor and love and care for and nurture myself. So much easier said than
Yeah.
done, right? A lifelong practice.
A lifelong practice for sure.
But a practice, an over and over and over again, try again, fail messily, start again kind of a practice that we're all, I think, trying to do on an ongoing
Yeah.
basis. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, I have a podcast on this, right? Like it's called Mental Health is Strength Training. And
Yeah.
I talk about how, like, if you have never gone to a gym, you've never lifted weights, going into the gym and thinking that you can start at 50 or 80 pounds lifting, it may not be realistic. So you're already putting pressure on yourself to have a starting point that's not realistic to where you are in your journey. But
Yeah.
the practice comes when we say, you know what, I'm going to do a few reps with these 5 pound weights. And then I'm going to go into progressive overload by moving on to 10 pounds and moving on to 15 pounds. But the starting point doesn't have to be extreme.
Yeah.
The starting point can be meeting me where I am right now. Right now, if I haven't picked up a weight in years, I need to meet myself where I am, which means I have to start small. But with time and with practice and with output, and in consistency, I can at some point find myself lifting those 50 pounds
Yeah.
and lifting that 80-pound weight. And so I just like to think of it from that perspective because, as you said, everything we're talking about today is a practice. No
Yeah.
one's going to log off, or at least I hope you all know you're not going to log off and become masters at doing this overnight. It's strength training, it's building that muscle over and over and over again and holding yourself with compassion with each rep and holding yourself with compassion with each choice and decision and reflecting when you don't make the choice, when you don't make the decision you felt like you were supposed to make, or whatever comes up for you, just redirecting the process and saying, what are the baby steps that I need to take right now to get to this point?
Yeah, yeah, and my favorite practice that I give to people to strengthen that muscle and practice that muscle of tuning in,
Mhm.
where we have for decades been trained to tune out, to ignore, are the 3 simple questions: how do I feel? What do I need? And what do I want? And to me, those questions asked every day build up over time, just like lifting one little weight a couple times, build up over time, because I think we do need permission and a practice to untrain the part of us that feels like we should value other people's expectations over our own. And so those three questions, how do I feel? What do I need? And what do I want? Are kind of small, but potentially over time revolutionary. And it's a practice that I use all the time, that attunement. And it's remarkable how, for the first 35 years of my life, I never asked myself that question once. None of those questions. And it took some time to even have answers. And in the beginning, it felt a little bit shameful
Yeah.
that I didn't even know. But of course, I didn't know. Of course, I didn't know. I had been taught for so long to that it didn't matter, that I didn't get to have needs. I didn't get to feel that something wasn't okay. I didn't get to have wants. And so if you're listening and you ask yourself the questions and you have no answers, that's okay, because the asking of the questions is what matters. The asking of the questions is what says to you unconsciously, oh, what I feel matters. What I need matters. What I want matters. And so if I give listeners one little practice, that's mine that I've used for over a decade, and it's made a big difference.
Yeah. I love it. And I think there are three very important questions that allow us to become more in tune with ourselves. And I don't think a lot of us realize the ways we're not attuned to our needs as you were discussing. And I think it's important to consistently ask yourself that question because we also are allowed to change
Yeah.
and what we may want can look different over time depending on our circumstances and our seasons of life. And so always be in tune enough to say, well, what are the things that I feel right now? What do I need and what do I want? Because maybe it was different last year. And
Mhm.
it's okay that I have a different response today. And I
Mhm.
think being able to be okay with that too, because we're always evolving and changing, which means our needs and our wants may always evolve and change. And so that self attunement is key, but also knowing that it's okay to pivot. It's okay to always want something different as you evolve in life too.
Yeah, and I think there's also the, what do I feel and need in the micro, and what do I feel and need in the macro, right? It's like,
Hmm.
I need to prioritize my physical health and working out, but today I need to rest.
Yeah.
So there's the micro, and then the overarching, and then the flexibility, because I think we get caught up also in the strictness of it. I've
Yeah.
got to do this to achieve my goals. And, discipline is not our problem, right?
I
High ach-
agree.
right? High achieving, particularly women, high achieving people, discipline is not the problem. Sometimes the lack of flexibility is the issue.
Yeah.
Where we cannot recognize in a moment that, and I get some people who say discipline is self-care, doing the thing you don't want to do in the moment when you don't want to do it and doing it anyway is self-care. I get that if your problem is discipline, but that's never been my problem. I can push through. I can do the thing I don't want to do because I'm supposed to over and over and over again. And so for some of us, the practice is flexibility. The practice is self-compassion. The practice is saying, I have a goal. I want to achieve my goal. I can push through. I choose not to because I recognize what I need in this moment and I honor what I need in this moment. And so a lot of times, a lot of the sort of, biohacking stuff talks about discipline. And I always kind of say, it's not for me.
Hmm.
I don't need more of that. I got plenty of it. I got plenty of the stay tough, push through,
Hmm.
stay stoic, don't give up. I got loads and loads of that. What I need is the, oh, let it be okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
that's what I need a little more dose of, and we're all different, but for me, that's been my practice. Let it be
Hmm.
okay
Yeah.
to to not be so hardcore all the time. Do you see
Yeah.
both? Do you see both of us just go?
A nice sigh. Yeah, I mean, I think too, I love how you just rounded that out right now because you are also speaking to self-trust because
Mhm.
we can get so much information from everyone, and it's really important to also be in tune enough with yourself to say, "Oh, I don't think I need that." Even in my therapy practice, one of the things I always encourage my clients to say to me is, I don't agree, Mina."
Mhm.
And that happens all the time where they'll say it to me, but I actually don't agree with that. And I appreciate it so much
Yeah.
because then it opens a door for us to understand each other better. Because there are times where I might interpret something not the right way,
Yeah.
right? Or there's something that's landing for them that's not being interpreted in a particular way. Or it might just simply be that I was wrong,
Right.
right? It might just be that too.
Yeah.
And I think that what I hear you saying is there are times where, especially in our society, where there's so much to consume and there's so much to learn, you might hear certain things that make you feel as if, oh, I must lack discipline, when the reality is I'm in tune with myself enough to know that that's really not the issue here. When I
Yes.
say, no, I don't want to keep doing this thing, or I'm just too tired, I can trust that I'm actually just too tired.
Yeah.
I can actually trust that. It's not that I'm being lazy. I only got 3 hours of sleep. I'm actually tired. And I can trust that I need to sleep more or take a nap or just allow myself to not have a very busy day because I recognize that since I'm tired, it's also impacting my cognitive health. It's impacting my ability to concentrate. It's impacting my physical stamina because I'm fatigued. It's not
Yeah.
because I'm being lazy. And I think that that is a well-rounded way to just shape for people what that looks like to have nuance in our
Yes.
society, because a lot of us are also conditioned to think very black and white. And I think, again, because we're in a society where there's so much information, when you're experiencing information overload, it's easy to just, mm, I would say, exclude the gray area
Yeah.
and focus on what seems right or wrong, going
Mhm.
back to the shoulds and the should nots, what's good or bad, rather than recognizing, am I aligned with this thing?
Mhm.
And it's
Yeah.
possible that it's just not for me. Discipline is not a me issue. This is something else, right? It's something else. It's not discipline, right? And so I think that I just loved how you spoke to that because it just makes me think of the importance of discernment and nuance in life and in our relationships and even how we receive information, but also it spoke to self trust and what it looks like to know what you need.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're gonna end there, and I think what feels good to me is to speak to those people who might be on the same end of the discipline is not our problem, lazy is not our problem, strong and tough and pushing through is not our problem. Um, Rising to the occasion to meet what everybody else needs of us is not the problem. Maybe just a little bit of permission to say, your work is not to comply more. Your work is to maybe see, and this might not be all of you. You might not all might not all be in this camp, but if you are, maybe your work is to break a couple more rules. See how that feels. I'm definitely in my rule breaking phase, wild and free phase. And it's really fun and completely terrifying and activating, but it's also kind of fun and exciting. So I'm going to wrap it up there with, if you identify with that type of tough push through, disciplined, productive, um, maybe break a couple rules, be a little rebellious. Mina and I are practicing it too, so you can practice it alongside us. Thank you so much for being with me. I always love my conversations with you. Always so much insight. I love you so much. Thank you to all of you who joined us. If you are not subscribed to Mina's two Substack newsletters. You should. If you're not subscribed to Voice Notes from a Friend, I would love to have you. And of course, if this sparked any ideas, please share in the comments and we will be in there responding. So thank you so much. So much love to you
Thank you,
and to
V.
all of you listening.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.